You're welcome to this new recording on Music in My Ears TV on YouTube. Today, we want to give a summation of the transition in the Nigerian music industry from the past to this moment. Now, Nigeria got independence in 1960, and ever since, music has evolved over the decades from 1960 to this very moment. So, what are we talking about? We are talking of a period that we had Highlife as a major form of music, into where we had Afrofunk as a major form of music, into where we had Nigerian pop, then we had Nigerian reggae, then had a decline in industry before we now picked it up again and now came up with a sort of fusion Afro pop down to what we have as Afrobeats now. Yeah, but we still go back to the beginning. In the 60s, post-independence, as we all know, Nigeria is a fusion of so many nations in one country with different languages, different dialects, different culture, different traditions, And when these differences are there, you know that music will be part of it. So we have the different tribes, different ethnic colorations who have music from time past. So in the Southwest, where you have the Yorubas as the dominant tribe, you currently have a form of traditional music in terms of juju music, fuju music, apala music. Then coming to the Midwest, they're talking of Edo, Delta area, you have their own form of music. So down in the East, everybody has its own traditional kind of music. In the Efik area of Cross River and Akwa Ibom, Efik area, we had our own kind of traditional music. In the Jaw areas, we had their own kind of music. The Hausa Fulanis in the north, the Benue, the TV people had their own kind of music. But all this came together into evolving and being influenced by Western culture post-independence. So now I discovered that the 60s was predominantly Highlife. So a fusion of this Highlife created, and let's say the traditional created icons, created their own stars. So each tribe trying to blend their culture with the predominant Highlife, now had some unique inspiration coming out from people like Sir Victor Uwaifo, Celestine Ukwu, Rex Lawson, Bobby Benson, Ike Dairo, Victor Laya, Dan Maria Joss. These icons came with their music, and created a fusion from Highlife with the culture, expressed in the way they were able to express their music then. Then you quite had a Fela that came out, fused his own Highlife with jazz and other influences, eventually evolving to Afrobeat, which is the organic thing that Fela created, which has now evolved to Afrobeats that the world is enjoying. Fela created that to pass a message as a medium of being able to pass a message of hope, a message from the point of view of the common man to those in power, using that medium called Afrobeat. Then over time, the Civil War came, late 60s. From the Civil War, stunted some of the developments that would have had, but at the same time threw up something else in terms of music. The Civil War period was a period that a lot of people, were displaced, especially in the Southeast, lost their jobs, lost their properties, and all that. But then came hope, and that hope came in form of music, because this military had affiliated bands with them that entertained them in the barracks, in their different units. But post-war, this same band transited into being able to entertain people, bring people out from where they were hiding from the wars, people that have left their homes, lost hope, lost everything that they had. I know of a particular incident that I've read that one of the bands then, when they got to a town called Enugu in Nigeria, Enugu was deserted. It was part of the effort, playing gigs here and there in the open street that people started coming out. So that is what the world threw up in terms of music. But what was that music? We are talking of Afrofunk music. Afrofunk, by its name, is just a fusion of Afro and funk. The funk aspect majorly influenced by James Brown and all the funk artists of their time. Don't forget that Nigeria has a lot of influence from the Western cultures that we tended to imbibe on over the years. So James Brown, major influence, and some of those other funk artists coming together, with the background that Nigerians had, fused their own form of music, the Afro aspect, the Highlife aspect, into a new music form called Afrofunk. So some of the pioneers that we know would include people like laying claims, as a matter of fact, the Tony Allens of this world, Fela's former drummer. Credit goes again to Ginger Baker that came all the way from Great Britain, propelling and preparing a bunch of talents that actually became some of the major force in propagating Afrofunk. So some of the major bands then that we know include the Doves, the Funkies, the Sweet Breeze, the Strangers, the Hikers, Founders 15, Action Funk Ensemble, Mono Mono, Ofege, several other bands as such. They were stars in their own rights, but as collectives, as a band. So these groups of people dominated the 70s. Don't forget there were no DJs then. DJ thing was just coming up. So if you need to go to a club or need to go to a party, it means you're going to listen to music being played live by this band. But towards the tail end of the 70s, another transition came. This time around, the bands were paving way to solo acts. And most of these solo acts were actually frontliners or the front men of those bands. So the bands, with everything in life, they had problems, some financial, quarrel here and there. So some of them disintegrated. And then throughout those that were the shining lights into pop stars, we're talking about people like Chris Okoti, Jake Solo, Felix Liberty, Jidobi, Chris Mba, several of them. You see people like, Christy Essien, several of those people became stars, but solo acts, So the Harry Moscows of this world, most of the band members became individual artists. Maxwell Ludor, several, Felix Ode, they became solo acts of those periods. Several names are still there that we're not able to recall, but that era of pop music, we're talking of the 80s, early 80s to mid 80s, they're all over, they enjoyed their stardom, their starhood, and coincidentally, that time was equally called the London era of Nigerian music. And what really happened was that most of our post-production used to take place in the United Kingdom, and that's where you had people like Eddie Grant's, Coach House Studios, the Abbey Studios of EMI. They were after they done the major productions here, they'll now go to London, do the post-production, do the videos, come back to Nigeria. And within that period, that is where the recording industry really took roots in terms of record labels. So that period, we had the EMI, we had the Phonodisc. Phonodisc was a locally an indigenous company, Tabansi indigenous company, then later Premier Music came up, another from Polygram, Decca, Aphrodisia. So these labels were the major ones that, projected in the industry in terms of distribution, in terms of A&R and all that. So the pop music period lasted in the 80s, but in the middle 80s, reggae popped up. And one of the reasons reggae popped up was just because the masses, the people needed a voice to speak, because as at that moment we're talking of military rules, dictatorship, authoritarian regime. So reggae came up strongly in the mid-80s to help the people to speak what was on their mind against people in authority. So then Terracotta, Majek Fashe, Ras Kimono, lot of the artists then moved into reggae music. Maxwell Ludor, several of them were now reggae artists. So that continued, but as the 80s was winding down, the industry was equally winding down. Because along the line, the record labels left, the multinationals left, the big ones were no longer there. So the reggae thing continued, that there was some Blackie, Desmond, the Dread Driver, several of them were all there doing their stuff. But after the major labels left, the industry went south. But then you cannot stop from doing music. Music was still going on, but how do you, distribute your music? So gradually, some people started individually to prop up the industry. The talents feel Ajegunle just had to let out some of their stars. So that's when now came the Galala era. They have people like Daddy Shoki, Daddy Fresh, and the rest doing their stuff, bringing out music in their own way with some solo labels that helped prop them up and market their music. But the industry was still going down. But as a resilient nation, as Nigerians, that nothing keeps us down for so long. It didn't take us a long time before we started discovering our way around not having the majors, the major labels in the country. So that's the period that had people coming up. The music became more refined. The production started blowing up again. By then we're not talking of the big studios with all the reels and everything. We're just talking of your computer in the room can form your studio. So many production guys came up. Don't forget, Nollywood was coming up strongly. So I think some people bought into the playbook of Nollywood and started the Nigerian music industry in another way. So you're talking of people like Kenny Ogungwe and his partners coming up with Kenny's music. Then Ray Power had become a private radio station, so it was easy to democratize music play. Ray Power, AIT, and the rest. So Kenny Ogungwe, with his partner in Kenny's music, became another force, plus some other labels here and there. They came together, started making music. And another aspect that happened, talking of the 90s, that actually brought up the music industry up again, Alaba market. Don't forget, Alaba was a propelling force for Nollywood to grow, funding, marketing, distribution. But this time around, I think some of them now decided to copy the playbook of Nollywood into music. So now we had the T-Joes of this world becoming labels, releasing songs, releasing P-Square, Nice, and other acts. So the people that the industry then used to term as pirates actually became marketers of music in Nigeria. So that era came up and we kind of coined it in a way we call Afro Pop. And what was it all about? It was just about the fusion between the modern elements, the Fuji, a bit of Juju, a bit of Highlife here and there to create a new music form. And as at that time, Ghana was doing hip life. Ghana too had a similar, the Highlife has evolved to hip life. We are doing Afro Pop, Afro Hip Hop, Afro Pop, Afro Hip Hop, like that, because there was these hip hop elements to our music in Nigeria, talking of the Remedies, talking of Rugged Baba, Rugged Man, Tribesmen. So all this fusion, came around. Then along the line, another art form came in. The new soul thing was equally catching up into the Nigerian music system. So Asa, bass, ego, so all these people, I personally thought that was what was going to propel us to the international limelight, because we lacked identity over the years. We can hardly say this is music from Nigeria simply because there was no identity and everybody was doing his own thing. You could have the juju, the akbala, the fuji, the highlife, but where was that Nigerian sound? What was it that we can call Nigerian music? So the new soul came with the people I've mentioned, along the line, more fusion, more influences, more mixture. The more you cook, the music, if you are cooking food, the more you add ingredients or subtract ingredients, you can vary the taste, and gradually we landed with Afrobeats. This is what we can call the key that opened the door, that created the identity, that gave us a leap into the global music form at the top level. So Afrobeats now came and became the top level. Why? Because what we've not been able to achieve over the years was now achieved with Afrobeats. And we are talking about global dominance. We had other artists, even looking for a way of, playing Afrobeats, and we've been able to incorporate more sound, more Western sound, more sound from different countries into Afrobeats. Well, sometimes it might look as a negative, but then the global impact is what we are talking about. It could be bad in the long run, I don't know. Because the more you fuse, you might kind of fuse yourself out of reckoning. But then, at this very moment, Afrobeat is a global force in world music, and be able to pick Grammys based on Afrobeats. We've packed all the venues you can mention with Afrobeats. That is what we've been doing on Music in My Ears, trying to bring this transition together so that people unborn will understand what the music industry was all about from the beginning to this time and maybe going forward. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again with another package on Music in My Ears. Stay tuned.